the experience of the guilt is gone that I had upon my being born from above, knowing that I knew that the guilt was gone. And although I've come under deep conviction of sin through the years, and sometimes on my face weeping and wailing and pounding the floor before God, just convicted of something displeasing in my own life, I said, the guilt has been gone for 35 years. I said, I can't fully explain it, but I wonder if you know what I'm talking about. Now, here's the other thing that's so interesting to me. The other reason why the book that the rabbi gave me didn't impact me that much. Since then, I've written about it extensively. Since then, I wrote a book. The book I've written that's translated into more languages than any book I've written, Our Hands Are Stained with Blood, The Tragic Story of the Church and the Jewish People, where I felt deeply the church must know, the church must experience Israel's pain. I've written extensively on anti-Semitism in church history. In my series, Answering Jewish Objections to Jesus, Volume 1, I deal with it extensively there, right up to issues concerning the Holocaust. So I've addressed this head on. But the reason that the book didn't affect me when I read it was because the only followers of Jesus that I knew loved Israel. Just had this profound love for Jewish people kind of written on their hearts. Even though it wasn't part of their ethnic or cultural background, it was just written on their hearts. I remember when there were some news events coming out from Israel, and it seemed that some Israelis were miraculously protected from a disaster. And this old Italian Christian brother says to me, God always protects his own. Oh, he thought they needed Jesus, he would share the gospel, but he still looked at them as a special people somehow. How interesting. As I've traveled through the nations now, I said it before, but I've run into it at an extraordinary level. Throughout America, I remember talking to rednecks from Louisiana. When you think of rednecks from Louisiana, you don't immediately think cultural sensitivity to Jews. It's not an immediate connection. And yet, I've talked to some of these fellows that love the Lord, and they said, the strangest thing, the moment I was born again, I love the Jews. Where'd that come from? The publisher, the head of the company that published Our Hands Are Stained with Blood, said, I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. I always had Jewish friends. He said, but when I came to the Lord, he's a physically bigger man than me. I'm big, he's bigger. He said, when I came to the Lord, he said, I just wanted to hug every Jew I found. Must have been scary. He was like a bear-like kind of guy. You a Jew? Oh, I love you. I was in Korea and had these unusual encounters with Israelis. It's another story. It's a wild story how I have these encounters on each trip for several trips. But I was staying in this hotel with this one Israeli, met him and was talking to him about the Lord and talking to him about the great love that these Korean Christians had for Jews. And he comes down in the lobby, and these folks are there to take me to the airport at the end of my trip. And I said, this is the Israeli I was talking to you about. And they go, we love the Jews. We love Israel. Hallelujah. This is the lobby of the hotel. This is not how Jews are normally greeted around the world. He's just standing there grinning, and they're just, and I was with him in prayer. Like I said, as they're sobbing, weeping for God to protect Russian Jews coming to the land and God to protect them. And where did this heart come from? I could give you story after story after story. One of the cutest was in India, my first trip. My wife and I are Jewish. There were 5 of us on the trip. Another young lady with us was Jewish, so 3 out of 5 were Jews. And we go to this one home, and the wife, we're going to have lunch there. The wife has not slept all night because she's having Jews in her home. This is a Christian couple in India. We get to the house. She's been up all night. She's so excited. The husband greets us at the door, all smiles. He said, you are the second Jew to come into my home. The first was Jesus Christ. I had an Iranian guy coming to my home selling something one time, Iranian Christian. He was baptized by a Jewish believer in Jesus. And I was talking to him about hatred of Jews and Christian history, and he said, anyone who hates a Jew is not a Christian. I mean, is that black and white? That's the only thing I've known. I only remember, honestly, in terms of my personal interaction, in 35 years, widely traveled, one time I met an anti-Semite who claimed to be a Christian. It was just weird, and cigar smoking on top of it. Weird in every way, but he was anti-Semitic on top. That was my only personal encounter. I'm not saying there are not weirdos out there. What I'm saying is, contrary to the fanatical obsession that every Christian has to win Jews, contrary to that not being true. Number two, contrary to outward church history, the only thing I've seen and witnessed and experienced is great love for Jewish people. Sometimes there's ignorance. Sometimes there's not understanding. When I'll share certain things about what happened in church history in other nations, they're in a state of shock. They have no connection to it. A lot of it is actually Anglo. A lot of it comes out of European history over a period of time, too. You'll share it in Africa, they're shocked. You share it in Asia, they've never heard of it. They're clueless. I have one of my friends who's a Messianic Jewish songwriter, worship leader. He goes to places in Latin America now, and they literally fill stadiums. Fill stadiums because they love the Jewish people and they love his music. These are Christians who fill the stadiums out of love and solidarity for Israel. He just got an invitation to Africa from the president of a country. I said, same deal there? He said, same deal there. It's wild. You say, oh, wait a second. They're all doing this because it's part of a ploy. You see, they understand. No, wait a second. They're very clever. And listen, they spend hundreds of millions of dollars every year to target the Jews. I've been looking for that money for years. I don't know where it is. We got a lot of good projects. We could really use it. Someone interviewed Moish Rosa, the head of Jews for Jesus, in years past, and they said, we understand someone's been giving you, this one, Pat Robertson and Jerry Fowle will give you millions. He said, no, they don't, but tell them we'll take it. Now, in point of fact, there are some organizations that actually, one I think gets over $100 million a year for Jewish evangelism. But let's put that in context. If you put that in the context of overall missionary work that the church does around the world, it's tiny, 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 tiny. Outreach work that the American church is doing in America for the Gentile community, it's tiny. And then the Lubavitch Hasidim, ultra-Orthodox Jews in Brooklyn, the ones I met with 30-something years ago who do aggressive outreach, according to a positive book on their organization called The Rebbe and His Army by Sue Fishkoff, they spend, this is Jews trying to reach Jews, $1 billion a year, not including their building projects. So let's put this in context. But this is the argument. The church knows that Jesus can't come back until Jews believe. Now, I personally believe that Jewish people will be turning to the Lord in mass in harmony with, conjunction with Yeshua's return, and that he will not return until his own Jewish people welcome him. But here's the thing. So all you guys, you're doing what Martin Luther did in 1523. This is the nice side. Oh, we love the Jews. Oh, we love Israel. Oh, Jesus is Jew. Yeah, we say Yeshua. We don't even say Jesus. Yeshua. See, when I came to the Lord, I didn't know Christ was not his last name. One of my friends thought that Jesus was the son of Mr. and Mrs. Christ. How'd you know otherwise? No, it's Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah. So we used the right Jewish words. It was said, oh,